Welcome. Today, we're going to dive into the absolutely brilliant work of anthropologist Clifford Geertz. We're going to see how he came up with this powerful way of decoding the hidden meanings behind cultural events, basically how to read an entire society just like you'd read a book. All right, so to kick things off, let's start with a puzzle. Picture this. It's the 1950s in Bali, and Geertz is watching people bet these enormous, life-changing sums of money on cockfights. I mean, it seemed completely irrational. So the question is, why would a whole society get so wrapped up in this high-stakes, chaotic gambling game? You see, this isn't just your average bet. It's what the philosopher Jeremy Bentham called deep play. This is a game where the stakes are so ridiculously high, we're talking financially and socially, that from the outside it just makes no logical sense to even get involved. But for the Balinese, well, that was the whole point. To really get it, you have to look at the symbolism. In Bali, the word for cock, sabung, isn't just about a bird. Nope, it also means hero, champion, and yeah, it's a double entendre, just like in English. So for these Balinese men, their roosters were, in a very real way, symbolic extensions of themselves. Think of them as magnifications of their own male ego.
So, yeah, huge amounts of money changed hands, but Geertz argued that the real currency here was something way more important. It wasn't about the cash, it was about status. It was about prestige, social standing, and honor. The money was just a symbol for how much status was actually on the line.
So how in the world do you go from a messy, chaotic bird fight to these deep, profound social meanings? Well, you need the right tool for the job. And that brings us to our detective in this story, Clifford Geertz, and his signature method.
And this, right here, just nails the core of his approach. A thin description just gives you the bare facts. Two men are betting on roosters. That's it. But Geertz pushed for thick description, and that's where you try to understand the event the way the people in it do, as this complex, symbolic drama about everything that matters in their world.
Now, the key thing to get here is that thick description isn't just about watching people. It's an active interpretation. It's about decoding that whole tangled web of symbols, unspoken rules, and shared meanings that give any action its real significance. It's about trying to see the world from their point of view. Okay, so let's jump back into that cockfight. But this time, we're going in armed with Geertz's powerful analytical lens. We're not just watching birds anymore, we're reading a cultural story. Now this is where it gets really interesting, because you can start to map out the whole symbolic network. The roosters stand in for their owners. The bets symbolize the risk to your social standing. The alliances people form around who to bet on, that reflects their family ties and village loyalties. The fight itself becomes this incredible simulation of their deepest social rivalries. And here's a critical rule of the game. You never, and I mean ever, bet against a rooster from your own family or village, even if you think it's going to lose. Why? Because the fight isn't really between two individuals. It's a public performance of the tension between two opposing social groups, two families, two villages. Geertz put it perfectly. He saw the whole thing as a kind of cultural release valve. It was this carefully built way for the Balinese to play with fire, to act out these deep, simmering social rivalries in a symbolic space where, at the end of the day, nobody really gets hurt. The social order stays intact because, hey, it's just a cockfight.
And this is the big reveal. Geertz figured out that the cockfight is basically a story the Balinese tell themselves about themselves. He called it a meta-social commentary, which is a fancy way of saying it's the society commenting on its own rules. It's a performance that reveals just how obsessed their culture is with status, with hierarchy, and this delicate art of putting everyone in their proper place.
Now this whole method of reading culture, it's not just for understanding conflict, it's also an amazing tool for figuring out the rituals that actually bring people together. And to see how, let's take a look at another one of Geertz's studies.
So, over in Java, Geertz studied something called the slamatan. It's a communal feast that does the exact opposite of the cockfight. Its whole purpose is to create this feeling of calm and togetherness, binding friends, neighbors, even ancestors and spirits into one big, unified social group.
And just like the cockfight, the slamatan is a text just packed with meaning. Even the food tells a story. Every single item is chosen to symbolize a core cultural value, from the purity of white rice to the red and white mush representing the essence of a mother and father. It's literally a map of their cosmos on a plate. But what happens when these cultural scripts and symbols completely break down? To figure that out, Geertz looked at a Javanese funeral. Ideally, this ritual is supposed to have a mood called ikhlas, this state of willed serenity, a calm, smooth letting go. but that emotional state relies on the ceremony going off without a hitch.
Well, Geertz saw a funeral that went terribly wrong. A young boy died, and his family was part of one political group. When the religious leader from an opposing political party was asked to perform the rites, he flat out refused. In that single moment, the entire cultural script was just torn to shreds. That sacred state of ikhlas shattered, and the mourners were plunged into total emotional chaos.
I mean, this is a perfect example of his point in action. You have a religious ritual that's supposed to bring comfort, but it got hopelessly tangled up in politics. Religious symbols had suddenly become political symbols, and it created a conflict that the existing cultural playbook just could not solve. The social fabric unraveled because the symbols meant two different, conflicting things at the same time.
So, after all this, what's the big takeaway? What does Geertz's work, from cockfights to funerals, really teach us about how to look at the world around us?
You know, what Geertz ultimately shows us is that culture isn't just some random collection of habits. It's a story. It's a form of communication that a society uses to talk about itself. Our rituals, our events, our traditions, they're all just chapters in a book, written in the language of symbols.
And what Geertz really gives us is a method to become fluent in that language. By using thick description, we can learn to take these cultural texts apart, piece by piece, and then put them back together to understand a world from a completely different perspective.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If we were to turn Geertz's lens on our own culture, what would we find? What's our version of deep play? Is it a sports championship like the Super Bowl, a political election, a stock market frenzy? What are the events in our world that tell the deepest, most revealing story about who we really are?